Hello, and welcome to today's telephone town hall with Congresswoman Simon and special guest Alameda County Supervisor Nikki Fortunado Bas. During the current federal government shutdown, we know that families, federal workers, and small businesses are feeling the impact and may have questions about benefits or how to help. During today's call, we will be taking questions from constituents like you. To ask a question, please press *3 now. You may also sign up for Congresswoman Simon's newsletter by pressing *6 at any time during the call. Again, please press *3 now to ask a question or *6 to subscribe to the Congresswoman's newsletter. If you would like to listen to live Spanish translation, please dial *0. You can also listen to Cantonese translation by calling 833-380-0655. The number for Cantonese translation is 833-380-0655. With that, I will turn it over to Congresswoman Latifah Simon. Congresswoman, we can't hear you.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you so much. Can you all hear me now? I'm hoping you can hear me now. Hey, everyone. It's Latifah Simon. I am so sorry about that little glitch. There are a few thousand of you all on the line today, and it's such an honor to be able to speak with you tonight. So I'm just going to get right down and dirty. I have my colleague, Nikki Fortunado Bas, on the line, who's the supervisor and dear colleague of mine, and she's going to speak in a second. But I want to give you all a little framework of why I wanted to bring you all together on the call tonight. As you all know, we're currently in the longest federal shutdown in government history. It's happening in real time for real people. And what's important to know is that I am here in D.C. I've been in the district, but I am here in D.C., and I've joined my Democratic colleagues, and we have been calling on Republicans to not only just come to the table, but to come to work. Let's negotiate. We've been very clear in saying let's govern, and it's important that we're clear about why the shutdown is happening. You know, the Republicans have the House, they have the Senate, they have the judiciary, they have the executive branch. We have been demanding that they come to the table to negotiate. In lieu of that, we're still working and demanding a funding bill that keeps high-quality health care affordable for Americans and, at the same time, protecting the dignity of workers. That's my commitment. You know, I have been meeting with federal workers, with members of the labor community, both leaders and folks who are on the ground, members of our community health centers, physicians and patients, nonprofit organizations, again, federal workers, I want to put that back in there, and constituents to hear how the shutdown is affecting everyone. And, you know, working with our elected officials like Ms. Fortunado Bas has been wonderful to see and understand how we can leverage county resources during the shutdown to assist our families, our seniors, our veterans, our homeless folks, again, our mothers, our caregivers. Last week, I convened leaders from 7 cities, 7 mayors to discuss what's happening and what resources are out there on the ground. 7 mayors from the cities that I represent here in Congress within District 12. And we are all committed to ensuring that our constituents have the resources that they need. You know, our cities are organized during this very difficult time. And we also really want to be strategic as the shutdown continues, because real people have real needs and have real questions. And as an elected, I realize that I work for you. You know, I wanted to give you all an update on how we got here and what's happening now, So bear with me. Let's get into that. Some folks have real questions and I want to answer. So how we got here. Republicans, like I said, they control the House, they control the Senate, they control the White House, and yet they have failed to govern. They have failed to pass a government funding bill for this current fiscal year. And even a stopgap funding bill that keeps the government open while they negotiate and agreeing with Democrats, they haven't done that work. That's because they're refusing to negotiate, like I said earlier. Mike Johnson literally has closed in the House doors. When the big ugly bill passed, they didn't negotiate with Democrats. It's full of really horrific stuff, including an assertion to take away health care from 15 to 17 million Americans. You're probably seeing the letters in your mailbox of your premiums going up. This is what we're fighting for. But instead, again, without negotiating, the Republicans in Congress are continuing to provide cover for our president. He's been shutting down the government, let's just be clear, since the day he was sworn in. One, he's engaged in mass layoffs, and he's engaged in illegally cutting federally funded programs and agencies in our district as well. I want to be clear about that. From research to Head Start programs, he has rescinded billions of dollars from states all over the country. So what's going on now? As I said before, House Speaker Mike Johnson and his Republican members and my Republican colleagues, they failed to show up for work for over a month. Over a month. This is now the longest shutdown in American history. Democrats, we are in D.C., and we're working hard at the table, waiting for them to show up to protect access to affordable health care. And frankly, my job is also to uplift the voices of the people that we care about and the people that we serve. And that's everyone on this call and everyone in the district. Meanwhile, while the doors are shut, the OMB director, his name is Russ Vaught, Stephen Miller, and President Donald Trump are illegally stripping away millions, billions of dollars in federal resources, and they're selling your rights to entitlement for parts. Thousands of hardworking federal employees have been fired, over 300,000 we know, without cause and without critical services. All of us are feeling that pain. All of us rely on one federal service or another, and real folks are suffering, due to this Republican inaction. And I want to be clear that this is illegal. This is illegal. If you have been subjected to a reduction in force, that notice, read it again, but we will tell you, you have rights too. The same disregard for working families we are seeing in these illegal fires to take food out of people's mouths and off people's tables. SNAP, known as CalFresh in California, those benefits are delayed in November because the Trump administration is choosing not to feed 42 million hungry people in this country. That was the choice. The USDA has access to over $5 billion in SNAP contingency funds provided by Congress to feed people during a shutdown. The Trump administration has the tools to feed hungry people, and they are choosing not to do it. And in my district, our district, over 44,000 households receive CalFresh benefits each month. No one should have to choose between putting food on the table and paying for a doctor's visit. And yet that's the reality that families are holding and dealing with when programs like SNAP are hanging in the balance during the shutdown. Now, like I said, Democrats and me, your member of Congress, we're ready to work. And a huge piece of that work is protecting access to affordable health care for all Americans, including insured Americans and uninsured Americans alike. So here's what that really means. And I know that there's a lot of confusion about this. One of the main reasons why I wanted to bring you all on the call today. Without an extension of the Affordable Care Act tax, what we call the ACA credits, a family of four in our district making $129,000 a year will see their premium rise by over $15,000. That is not a political talking point. That is not hyperbole. That is fact. And when the Republicans' big, cruel, ugly bill decided that they want to gut Medicaid and now the expiration of ACA tax credits, over 35,000 people in the East Bay will lose their health insurance by 2034. That's why I'm in DC. So in short, the Republicans are making affordable, high-quality health care out of reach for millions, but in our district, tens of thousands of real people, real families, real workers. The fight will, in fact, impact everybody, whether you're on Medicaid or not. This will impact the local community health center that many of you rely on for your culturally competent care, your language-appropriate care. This will impact the local hospital you go to, if you have insurance or not. It'll impact your hospital because think about it. Without revenue from Medicaid and Medicare, we know, and we've talked to these hospital executives, they will be forced to cut staff. And that's all staff, not just some staff that serve you and serve staff that are on Medicaid and Medicare if you have private insurance. Again, we're expecting 30% cuts to some of these hospitals based on what's in that big ugly bill. They will no longer be able to receive the same levels of Medicaid funding from the federal government. And that is appalling and it's scary. So that's why it's important for me in my role to connect not only with folks on the ground, not only folks in our labor community, not only folks in our unhoused community, not just folks who are trying to survive, but to really be in coalition with our local electeds. And so tonight, I'm glad to have, again, my dear colleague, Alameda County Supervisor Nikki Fortunado Bas. She agreed to join me to talk a little bit about the work that Alameda County, and particularly, again, your leadership, Supervisor, what you've been doing to step in and make sure that our communities are taken care of, because we all know that people's lives can't be played with. There are real pain and issues that are going on out there. So before I turn it over to Supervisor Bas, I also want to say that all of my staff are on the call from our Washington, D.C. office to our local office. Our staff is open. Our doors are open. Our phone lines are open. Throughout the shutdown and beyond, we are ready and honored to serve you through this shutdown. Again, we are working to process casework and get some answers as we navigate federal agency closures. We are here to help answer questions, whether that's about your Social Security benefits, your Veterans Affairs benefits, an immigration issue, IRS issues. We are also resources, more other issues you may have that may need to connect to county or city resources. But you can always go to our website. We keep it up daily. If you have questions, other questions that I haven't talked about in my opening, you can always go on our website. We're trying to keep that stuff, again, daily updated so you understand how the shutdown may be affecting you. And with that, I would love it to turn it over to Alameda County Supervisor Nikki Fortunado Bas. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Simon. It's a real pleasure to be on this telephone town hall. I hear we have a few thousand people joining us, so thank you so much for taking time out of your evening. So my name again is Nikki Fortunado Bas. I am your county supervisor in Alameda County. I've been serving you since January. And for folks who don't know much about what the county does, it's really important to know that we are your social safety net. About 2/3 of our budget is from the federal as well as the state government. And so we're the organization that receives that funding and delivers services to all of you. And that is services for some of our most vulnerable residents. It includes food assistance, which I'll talk about today. It also includes health care, child care, foster care, a range of services that are critical for everyone. So with this government shutdown, I want to talk about food. Food is a basic human right. Nobody should go hungry, especially our children, seniors, immigrants, unhoused neighbors, or families. So shame on this federal administration for its callous policies that are literally devastating our community and causing yet another disaster. So never in 61 years has the SNAP program been paused due to a government shutdown. And what that means here in Alameda County is that 179,000 Alameda County residents started this month of November with no SNAP benefits. And that pause in SNAP benefits means a loss of $35 million a month in Alameda County. That's $35 million that families will not be able to spend on food. And it's also $35 million that won't be spent in our grocery stores and paid to local farmers. So this decision to not fully fund SNAP is really devastating on many levels. I'm sure all of you know that our California Attorney General sued because of this issue. And it actually took 2 court cases, 2 judges to get the administration to finally do something. We wish that they were deciding to fully fund the program. However, the administration is planning to provide partial SNAP benefits, and that unfortunately means less food on the table. So what's happening right now is that with the judge's orders and the administration deciding to partially fund SNAP, the state of California is working to deliver those benefits to your debit cards. So we expect that those partial payments will hit your debit cards early to mid next week. And again, while this is partially good news, we know that this administration has access to plenty of funding right now to provide full benefits. And that's really what I know our Congresswoman will keep fighting for. That's what all of us are going to keep fighting for. And just to take a step back, we know that we are in a food crisis. We've been in a food crisis for some time, and it's only getting worse. 1 in 4 residents in Alameda County were food insecure before the shutdown, and that's 400,000 individuals in our county. We want to make sure that people are fed. And demand for food assistance is greater now than the peak of COVID, but we no longer have federal pandemic dollars to meet the need. And on top of that, residents in Alameda County will lose up to $70 million annually in CalFresh benefits as a result of the administration and H.R. 1. I call H.R. 1 the big, brutal bill. Now, there is a sliver of hope. What I wanted to share with you tonight is that my office is convening an amazing county-wide network of food justice organizations, including our local food bank. And these organizations have been and will continue to ensure that no neighbor goes hungry. And at the Board of Supervisors, I'm also chairing a committee called Alameda County Together for All, or ACT for All for short. And that committee has been meeting since February to look at all the different ways that this administration is harming and jeopardizing our community. So we have looked at food, we're looking at healthcare, we're looking at immigrant rights. And one of the resources we have at the county is a tax called Measure W. It's a 10-year half-cent general sales tax. And back in July, we were able to make a decision to allocate 80% of that funding to homelessness solutions, which is what the voters were told this funding would help support, and 20% to our safety net. And so working together with a broad coalition, the Board of Supervisors, at the request of a number of food organizations, allocated $16.5 million to support the food bank, senior organizations, and a range of partner organizations. So that $16.5 million will help address the impacts of the big, brutal bill. So that's, again, to go to a number of partners for prepared meals for seniors, food distribution, meals for children and the unhoused, food recovery, and nutrition programs. And with the federal shutdown and the current emergency that we are in, last Friday I was pleased to announce at a press conference that the Congresswoman joined that my office and our coalition has raised an additional $1.5 million for this current food emergency. That's $1 million from 2 local foundations, $500,000 from Crank Start, and $500,000 from Eat, Learn, Play. Most of that money is going to the food bank to continue to procure and distribute food. And then we've also raised $500,000 to fund smaller community-based organizations that will distribute food into our neighborhoods. And that includes doing things like home delivery, because we know that especially for some of our immigrant community members, they're not as comfortable going out to our pop-up food sites and other food banks to secure food. And that additional $500,000 includes a contribution of $100,000 from my office, as well as a $200,000 contribution from our Alameda County Superintendent of Schools, Elise Castro, and a group called Oakland Thrives. And so what I want you to know is that it's really all hands on deck to make sure that we can address food security in this current crisis. And our message is really clear right now. We have to come together as a community to make sure everyone is fed. So I want to wrap up by thanking the restaurants who stepped up to provide free meals to CalFresh recipients, individuals who've committed to buy groceries for their neighbors. Our county is working on a number of pop-up distribution food sites, and of course the food bank and a range of organizations, literally hundreds of organizations, are stepping up to distribute and deliver food. And I want to make sure that you've got information if you do need food assistance. If you need food assistance in Alameda County, please call this phone number, 510-635-3663. Again, that number, which is available in multiple languages, is 510-635-3663. 510-635-3663. And there is also a website, which is foodnow.net. So again, if you need food assistance, you can go to the website foodnow.net or call 510-635-3663. And I'll leave my remarks there, Congresswoman, and I will join you for the Q&A with our neighbors.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman Simon, and County Supervisor Fortunado Bas. For those who have just dialed in, as a reminder to ask a question, please press *3. You can also sign up for Congresswoman Simon's newsletter by pressing *6 at any time during the call. If you would like to listen to the live Spanish translation, please dial *0. You can also listen to Cantonese translation by dialing 833-380-0655. Again, that's 833-380-0655. Our first caller is Susan from Alameda, who is asking about the shutdown's impacts on public transit and on SNAP benefits. Susan, you're now live with the Congresswoman.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate this. This is the first time I've been included in a call unsolicited, so it's a big step forward, I think, for our government, and I appreciate it so much. Actually, Congresswoman already has addressed the issue with the food stamps that I had, with the projected date of middle of the month maybe, or sometime next week for the partial food stamp benefit coming through. And the other question I have is, I know that AC Transit is partially funded with federal dollars, and I'm wondering, as this has gone on for 1 month, has there been some discussion, or is there any plan to be cutting back on bus services in Alameda County?
Thank you so much for calling in. And actually, just to let you know, it's a big honor to be in a position where I get to speak with folks like you who typically don't get those emails or calls to be involved. We want to do everything that we can, and we will spend the resources that we need to speak to everyone in our community during this time and beyond. So to quickly answer your question, both AC Transit and BART our staff has been in communication with them, and I would love for Supervisor Fortunado Bas to also touch on this. We believe at this time they're fine. Oftentimes, federal funds are drawn down by the month with reimbursements from Head Start programs, but it's a bit different with transit. I was on the BART board for a number of years, and while every single grant has a bit of a different payment mechanism, BART and AC Transit both are highly dependent on fare to run their revenue. So in this moment, there's going to be impacts everywhere. We know that. We're hoping to open up the government. We got to push them to open up the government and do their jobs. But we have not seen any impacts in terms of bus service or BART service as directly related to the shutdown. And I want to thank you for the question, because we will make sure to make everyone in our community I'll put on notice if there are those shifts. And again, we're working with Fortunado Bas's office and other members of our elected community. And if you're on their listservs, we're doing social media, updating our websites daily, and doing as much press as possible to let folks know where things are with these daily issues, from transit to food to healthcare to other benefits that folks rely on. Thank you. Supervisor Bas?
Thank you.
I don't have a whole lot more to add regarding food, since we covered that. And with transportation, I do want to encourage you to also make sure that you know who your transit board members are, your BART board members, your AC Transit members, and make sure you're taking advantage of engaging with them.
Okay, and I'm
Great.
Thank you. Our next caller is Nick Burns in Oakland, a federal employee with the IRS, who has a question about how the shutdown affects federal employees in the long term. Nick, you're live with the Congresswoman and Supervisor Fortunado Bas.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
I sure can. You're loud and clear, sir.
Oh, okay. Hi, how you doing? Yeah. So I'm just wondering, as far as paid, do we have any insight if we're going to get paid back, like back pay, as federal employees? I'm a federal officer. I'm an IRS investigator, so I know everybody hates me, but that's fine. Are we going to get paid back, or should I rely on state unemployment?
It's a great question, and first of all, I appreciate your work. We know that you're working to make sure that people.
Yeah, nobody appreciates more of it. So
well, I do. Listen, everyone who takes the oath to serve our government, they are public servants, and thank you for your work. And your question is very near and dear to my heart. My mother was a federal worker for 34 years, and we went through a few shutdowns growing up.
Where did you work? Okay, if I can ask.
She worked at the VA. Yes, of course. She worked at the VA hospital at Fort Miley. And,
oh man.
So thank you. So I think that your question, a lot of folks on the line want to hear your question. So I'm going to actually just sort of spell it out. Yes, workers legally have to be paid according to the Government Employees Fair Treatment Act, And so, yes, you will be.
And didn't Donald Trump?
So Trump's threats to withhold back pay of federal employees is illegal, and it will be challenged. The likelihood of federal workers and their families should never be a bargaining chip. So, again, we're going to keep you updated, but the law says, again, it's written clearly in the Government Employees Fair Treatment Act that you do your pay. Once this federal shutdown is over, employees will receive back pay. And I want to make sure that you know this. Our office will be in contact, again, through social media and through email and even this list to make sure you all know what we know in terms of what that timeline is. One of the things I want you to know in my office will be completely transparent with all the information that we have that affects your life. And just in terms of another thing I would love to say around the reduction in force that federal employees have experienced, it is illegal for the President of the United States to lay off federal employees during a government shutdown. A government shutdown gives the administration zero new authority to fire federal workers. That is the law. That's not what I just believe. Federal workers have the same protections and rights during a shutdown as they do when the government is open. If you are subject to a reduction in force, or if you're already in that place over the last month, if it's a new letter or if it's a letter that you got or an action over the last couple of weeks, you have legal rights under federal law. And we want you to look into those rights, and we'll make sure that the information that we're providing gives you access to figure out how you want to address those. But yes, you will be paid once the government opens. Thank you so much for your call. The last thing I think it's important to say on that before I hand it over is if Ms. Fortunado Bas, you want to add anything to that, is the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform inside Congress. That's a committee that I'm on. We have a tip line for whistleblowers to report illegal terminations. If you have been fired during the shutdown, that is illegal. And we, again, through our website and through our communications, will make sure that you, one, know your rights, but you also have an opportunity to even go further and using those tip lines and other remedies to make sure that your voices are heard. Thank you, sir.
And I'll just add again, just real quick, I know that during this government shutdown, our food banks and our other food providers have seen more and more workers who are furloughed workers. And so, again, there has been, because the county has been able to allocate additional funds to food security, there has been a lot more food procurement, food distribution happening. And so, again, in Alameda County, if you do need assistance with food, you can call 510-635-3663, and the website is foodnow.net.
Thank you, Congresswoman Simon and Supervisor Fortunado Bas. As a reminder, to ask a question, please press *3. Our next caller is Patricia in Oakland, who has a question about how Democrats are fighting for access to affordable health care. Patricia, You're live to ask your question.
Okay, I just basically wanted to ask that the Democrats hold all the way until the Republicans give up and decide to do the right thing by not cutting back on health care they're now limiting the SNAP and to make sure they're fully funded. And that's basically, I want to know that the Democrats are going to stay in there and fight to the end. I know we're suffering, or people are suffering because of what's going on, but I don't want the Democrats to give in. So I just want to hear from you if you know that that's their thinking right now, that they won't give up.
Ma'am, you are asking the $1 trillion question. The Democrats did not want to be in this position. What's important about this call, for me, is really, there's insider baseball in there. As long as I'm in Congress, I want to be able to throw out that ball and let you know the conversations that I'm in, the conversations that we're hearing. The Democrats, typically how it works, whoever is in the majority, they pass a funding or they move a bill to fund the government. But typically when that happens, no matter who's in charge, Republicans or Democrats, there is a process in which both parties come to the table and negotiate. That not only has not happened, they're making sure it doesn't happen. Should we just roll over, 17 million people will lose their health benefits. That's the fight. But I will tell you, in that spending bill, the point is to fund tax breaks for folks who have a whole lot and who don't need those resources. And so where that money comes from, it comes from your health care. It comes from, while you're not getting SNAP right now, folks are not getting SNAP, I want to be clear, ma'am, that they've already, in the big bill, cut SNAP. The average American who receives SNAP gets $6 a day for food resources from SNAP. The cut prior to this violation, they cut it to $4 a day. That is for women, that is for children, that is for disabled folks, that is for low-income caregivers, that is for our students who are at our city colleges, our Cal States and our UCs. And it's, to me, we cannot let the American public down by not fighting for their most basic rights. I know I refuse to vote on any spending bill that leaves a quarter of the folks in our district with nothing, with no food, with no access to health care. That is the floor. But thanks to the leadership, I will say, of Supervisor Fortunado Bas, we said it over and over and over. If you are hungry in our district, during the shutdown, you can and must eat, and there are resources for you. If you are a federal employee, if you are having difficulties, folks don't know and understand what the shutdown means, please call my office. If we need to listen to you, support you in any way by letting you know opportunities for resources, we will do that. That is our right and that is our honor. Ms. Bas, Fortunado Bas.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman. I know that you are carrying that righteous fight for us here in our district. And I would just add, many of us have friends, family members in other parts of the state or the country. We have to make sure that we're shoring up the commitment to fight for health care across the entire country. So I would also encourage folks, I've got family in Nevada. I'm going to call them and say, please join our Congresswoman in this fight.
Before we go to the next question, I want to, for folks who I haven't had an opportunity to meet and get to know, is, I was a teen mom and I was going to City College before I transferred to Mills. I had a baby on my hip, not just a teen mom, a single mom, and I got $26 of food stamps every month for my daughter and I. I was working full time, also going to school as an outreach worker, working with young people surviving the streets. Folks are doing everything right, and poverty is expensive. And so these conversations, these fights, when you see me fighting on the floor, when you saw me in the first fight as I entered the Congress and I screamed at the Rules Committee and demanded that they not legislate for the poor if they've never been hungry, I feel that to the bottom of my soul. And I work with other electeds and organizational leaders and folks from labor and regular folks trying to just make it with the humility and knowing that we cannot play around with people's lives. And I believe that the Republican Party is playing around with people's lives. And so holding the line to just get political points, that's not what my vote will ever do. It is to stand up for the folks in our community who deserve better.
Thank you, Congresswoman and Supervisor Fortunado Bas. As a reminder to everyone on the line, to ask a question, please press *3. You can also sign up for the Congressman's newsletter by pressing *6 at any time during the call. To listen to live Spanish translation, please dial *0. You can also listen to Cantonese translation by dialing 833-380-0655. Our next caller is Victor in Berkeley, who has a question about how seniors and individuals with disabilities and has a question about how seniors and individuals with disabilities can be supported at this time. Victor, you're live with the Congresswoman.
Hello, Congresswoman. Great to connect. The Center for the Public is putting together resources and information to ensure that our consumers that are most in need have the information that they need to get through this period. But what have you been hearing, both from the federal side on disability-specific protections during the shutdown, and also for a supervisor, how can we really empower these communities that are most at need, ideally people with disabilities and seniors? Thank you.
Victor, brother, thank you so much for being on the call today. If it's the Victor that I think it is, then year
It
in
is.
the community. Yay! The Center for Independent Living and DREDA, to me, are the centers of our community, really. And I say our community, I'm a disabled mother. Many folks do know that I was born with a congenital blindness, and not only do I rely on public transportation, as a young person, I relied on being, in K through 12, having support in classrooms, as, someone who needed support with visual learning. The shutdown, we could talk about the shutdown, Victor, but you know as well as I know, and I'm going to talk about the shutdown, that the day that Donald Trump was sworn into office, there was an assault on much of the work that your organization and others have worked on for the last few decades, from 504 to ADA. And I got to say, with the dilapidation, the crucifixion of the Department of Education and the Office of Civil Rights, we know that disabled children, pre the shutdown, disabled adults who will be affected by these Medicaid cuts, their livelihoods are absolutely in danger. Their rights to learn, their rights to be integrated in public space. This fight is one that I will be focused on the ground with you, with, again, the millions of disabled Americans, children to seniors, and folks who, again, are looking to us, elected leaders, to stand in the gap. And it should not just be on the NGO spaces to yell and legislate at the mountaintops. In the shutdown, Social Security benefits are continuing. What I'm nervous about, Victor, right, is, in Berkeley, and I tell folks this all the time, I know that Social Security office. Listen, my husband died of cancer, and when Kevin passed away, even before he passed away, we had to go in and apply for disability benefits. While he was inpatient, I stood in that line. When he died, I stood in that line to get the death benefit. As a disabled woman, I know a lot about why we need in-person Social Security support. We have been told by the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful folks at the Social Security Administration in our district that they are deeply limiting in-person visits. And a lot of our folks in our communities go face to face, whether they have hearing impairments, visual impairments, intellectual impairments. Being in person is extremely important, and not just relying on technology. If you are having any issues accessing your Social Security benefits, call our office, and we will make sure to get you that information before we get off this line. The priority for me is our seniors, our children, and people with disabilities, and again, in working Americans. Disabled folks in our district and beyond, while I'm in office, will not be an afterthought. And I want to really thank you for the work that you're doing, and keep pushing me and keep pushing others to ensure that we're not going back to a 1940s America where disabled folks weren't integrated in government and leadership. We have a lot of work to do, and they're trying to take us back, but I refuse. So we will ensure that if you're on this call, or if you have folks in your family, you're not getting anyone on the line, you can't figure out how to use these complicated websites while the shutdown is in place, we will help you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And thank you, Victor. It's good to hear your voice, and I certainly appreciate the incredible work that you and the Center for Independent Living do. I'll share a couple things, which is that one of the reasons I talked about the additional $1.5 million that we were able to raise for food security because of the current crisis with the SNAP food assistance delays. One of the reasons we have set aside $500,000 of that funding to support smaller community-based organizations is that we know there is a need for home delivery of food or culturally appropriate food. There are specific needs that communities have that we want to be able to meet. And so, again, there are more and more organizations that are working to address food delivery. And the food bank actually has, when you go to their website, foodnow.net, you'll see a form where you can check off whether you are looking for food delivery. And I know they're getting a lot more interest in that at this particular moment. So we're really trying to make sure that food security is also accessible. And, you've really taught me, Victor, that it's not just about complying with the American Disabilities Act, it's really about working towards disability justice. And I'll mention one more thing, which is part of the big, brutal budget, and that is potentially eliminating a program that really supports seniors, which is called LIHEAP. And that program is essentially a subsidy program so that low-income seniors can pay off their electricity bill. And that is so important, especially during the winter. We don't want people to choose between having heat in their house when it's cold or putting food on the table, for example. And so we're fighting to make sure that that program continues. And a contingency, if it does get defunded, is that Alameda County's board is going to use the Measure W Essential Services Fund that we have to support continuing that program for those who are most in need. And so, I want you to know that the county board is really looking at all the ways this administration, through its policy changes and budget reductions, is impacting our communities. And while we are not going to be able to meet the hundreds of millions of dollars in need, we are really looking at what will have the most impact in our most vulnerable communities and making sure that we are supporting with our Essential Services Fund those type of needs, like supporting seniors with food as well as with heating if they qualify for that low-income program. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman Simon and Supervisor Fortunado Bas. As a reminder, to ask a question, please press *3. We're going next to Miriam in Berkeley, who has a question for Supervisor Fortunado Bas on what resources exist for people who are without SNAP benefits right now. Miriam, you're live with Supervisor Fortunado Bas.
Hi, thank you so much for taking our questions and for this really good presentation. I live in Berkeley, and I do not know, I donate to the Alameda County Food Bank, but I don't know anyone in my immediate neighborhood who is food insecure, and I was wondering if there's any service or organization who's connecting people like me. What I would love to do is get someone on SNAP, a family, somebody who is disabled, a senior, just to give me a list of what their groceries would be, and I will go buy them and then bring them back to them. And I was wondering if there's any program that could hook me up to somebody who needs that kind of service.
Thank you so much, Miriam. You are such a great example about how our community is coming together. This idea of mutual aid, which we practiced during COVID, is coming back now during this federal shutdown and under this current administration. And I really appreciate your willingness to be able to volunteer and to support. I would say that, one resource in your neck of the woods is the Berkeley Food Network. However, I'll share my email address so that you can reach out to us and we can connect with you directly to support you with some resources so that you can do that incredible work helping your neighbors. My email address is district5@acgov.org.
Thank you, Supervisor Fortunado Bas. The last question will be Jane in Oakland, who has a question for Congresswoman Simon on Speaker Johnson's failure to reopen Congress. Jane, you're live with the Congresswoman.
Thank you. What if Speaker Johnson has no intention of ever bringing Congress back into session, and part of his reasoning would be to give President Trump more power? Is there a way to work around this, or is there anything in the works to bring Congress back?
What's so difficult, ma'am, is we're asking that question every day. Apparently, this is, again, the longest. So there's a shutdown, which is very different than what I'm experiencing as a new Congress member, talking to some of the most venerable members in Congress. They have said during shutdown, Congress, the House, usually works. The doors are shut. That means, and your question is so important because I think it gets really confusing for many folks who are not deeply following politics. There's a federal shutdown because we can't fund the government. That means a lot of government employees are not getting paid. But you know who's getting paid? Members of Congress. And so for them not to show up, the doors are literally locked. The House floor is done. There are no hearings. Right? There are no hearings. The entrances to the buildings. I'm on campus all week, and the entrances to the buildings are closed because there are not enough folks who are coming in to secure the buildings. And so what is really important, I think, for you to know is that I'm here, that Democrats are here, but we can't let up. We can't let up and demanding that they come back to work. There is no process. He is the Speaker of the House. He is essentially the dean. And this last election in November has literally had lethal consequences. Congress, the House of Representatives, not able to act if those doors are closed. Now, I am meeting with constituents. We are working as Democrats, literally waiting in caucus to negotiate with these guys. They're just not showing up. That being said, they can't ignore 200 Democratic members of Congress showing up every day to work. The people of the United States who have the right and the privilege to vote will hopefully make a different decision moving forward. Right now, I don't believe that there is anything that we can do to get this man except to continue to advocate and to organize, to open up the House. The Republicans, literally majority of them, they're not working. They're on vacation. Thank you so much for the question. It is infuriating. It is unprecedented. And I think we just have to continue organizing and demanding something different from the Speaker of the House. He, like me, took the oath of office to work not only for his constituents, but for the great people of the United States of America. The last thing I'll say on that is there is a member of Congress from Arizona who won a special election, and she too has not been sworn in since this shutdown began, not because the Speaker of the House can't call Congress back into session. He refuses to do it.
Yeah.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman Simon. As a reminder, to sign up for the Congresswoman's newsletter, press *6 at any time during the call. Congresswoman, back to you for your closing remarks.
Well, one, I really want to thank folks for participating in tonight's call. It means a lot to have you all together with us to get these updates, but also to express your frustrations and the things that you are deserving of. One is public officials that are working for you. I want to thank Supervisor Fortunado Bas for being a real leader in this moment and ensuring that the folks in this community have the basics, and that's food, and that's access to services. I want you to know that I will continue working day in and day out. Our office is open. I am hell-bent on ensuring that even though that I am a new member of the House, that I am extremely vocal and that I'm calling out what's happening in the administration and demanding, as the last caller has asked, that Speaker Johnson open up the House so that we can get back to work and hopefully get back to the business that you all are demanding of us. Diala, could you do me a favor and provide the information for our constituents to contact us? That'd be great. Are you there, Diala?
Yes, thanks, Congresswoman. The number to dial our office in Washington, D.C. is 202-225-2661. If you need to dial our district office for help with casework, 510-763-0370. Again, that's 510-763-0370.
Thank you so much, everyone. And again, thank you, Supervisor, and thank you, members of our community, for caring so much, for believing in your democracy. We're open for business. My office is open. The supervisor's office is open for business. We want to do nothing more than be your voice, fight for you, and ensure you have the services and the advocacy you need during this time. We're looking forward to speaking with you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you for joining today's telephone town hall with Congresswoman Lateefah Simon and Alameda County Supervisor Fortunado Bas. If you would like to stay up to date on the Congresswoman's work, please follow her on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, and X at Rep. L. Simon. If you would like to subscribe to her newsletter, just stay on the line and leave your name and email address after the tone. Thank you for joining and have a good evening.